They say some moments haunt you forever. Not just the kind of memories that cross your mind every now and then, but the kind that burrow deep inside you, sit heavy in your chest, and refuse to leave. The kind that change you forever. That night, I had no idea what was coming. I had no reason to think anything was wrong. I was just another wife in another house, living another ordinary night in my ordinary life. Or so I thought. I remember it so clearly, like it just happened yesterday. The house was quiet, too quiet. It was one of those nights where silence isn't peaceful, it's loud. The kind of silence that wraps around you, makes you feel the weight of being alone. The clock on the wall ticked, slow, steady, almost mocking me. Outside, the rain had just started, soft at first, then harder. I could hear it tapping against the windows, the steady rhythm filling the room. The air felt heavy, like something was coming. I was curled up on the couch, blanket wrapped around me, half watching a show I wasn't really paying attention to. Just another night of waiting for my husband to call, waiting for a message that never came. I glanced at my phone. Nothing. I told myself I wasn't waiting, that I didn't care. That it was fine. He was busy, just like always. Another work trip, another night of falling asleep alone, another night of pretending it didn't bother me. But it did bother me. More than I wanted to admit. I sighed, reaching for my glass of wine, taking a slow sip. That's when I heard it. A knock. Soft at first. Almost hesitant. I frowned. Who the hell knocks on someone's door at this time of night? I sat up, heart picking up speed. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was just the wind or the rain. Then it came again. Louder this time. More insistent. I froze. A chill ran down my spine. I wasn't expecting anyone. No one ever came over this late. My mind started racing. Could it be my husband? Maybe his flight got canceled. Maybe he was surprising me. Or maybe it was something else. I stood up slowly, heart hammering. My fingers gripped the edge of the couch, knuckles white. I glanced at my phone again. Still no messages. No missed calls. Something about it felt off. I took a deep breath, trying to shake the feeling. It was just my imagination running wild. It was probably nothing. But deep down, deep down, I already knew. That knock, that moment, that night, nothing would ever be the same again. Before we dive in, if you love real-life stories that make you feel something, that make you question the things you thought you knew, subscribe now to Heartfelt Tales Unfold. You won't want to miss what happens next. Because trust me, this story, it's one you'll never forget. I stood there for a long moment, staring at the door. My heart thumped in my chest, my breath caught in my throat. 100 different thoughts ran through my mind at once, none of them making any sense. I had lived in this house for over a decade. It was supposed to be my safe space, my sanctuary. And yet, in that moment, it felt unfamiliar. Foreign. Like something was about to shatter the quiet, predictable life I had built. I took a shaky breath, my fingers tightening around the blanket draped over my shoulders. Then, slowly, I stepped toward the door. But before I opened it, before I even reached for the handle, something inside me hesitated. That small, unexplainable whisper in the back of my mind. The kind that tells you something is coming, even if you don't know what. The kind that warns you, pay attention. This moment is important. But I ignored it. I always ignored things like that. I unlocked the door, my fingers cold against the metal, and pulled it open. And that's when I saw him. Before I tell you who is standing on the other side of that door, I need you to understand something. I need you to understand me. My name is Claire. I'm 38 years old. I've been married for almost 15 years. And if you had asked me 10 years ago if I was happy, I would have said yes. Without hesitation. Back then, things were different. David, my husband, was different. He used to make me feel things. He used to make me laugh until my sides hurt, hold my hand just because, pull me close like I was the only woman in the world. He used to see me. But somewhere along the way, I faded. I became part of the furniture. Always there, always in the background. He got busy. Work, business trips, meetings that never seemed to end. He would come home exhausted, barely looking up from his phone as he muttered a quick, "Hey, babe," before disappearing into his office. We stopped talking about real things. Conversations became logistics, groceries, bills, who was picking up Ethan from school. And then, eventually, we stopped talking altogether. Dinners turned into silent meals, the sound of cutlery scraping against plates louder than any words we could have exchanged. At first, I fought for us. I tried to bring the spark back. I planned date nights, sent flirty texts, bought lingerie that he barely noticed. But you can't hold on to something by yourself. And eventually, I stopped trying. I told myself it was normal. This was marriage. This was just how things go after so many years. But deep down, I knew better. Deep down, I was lonely. There was one person who still made me feel something: my son, Ethan. He was 17, my pride and joy. But even he was slipping away from me. Teenagers. That's what I told myself. They grow up, they pull away. It's natural. But still, I missed him. I missed when he used to tell me everything. When he would sit at the kitchen counter, talking a mile a minute about his day, his friends, his dreams. Now? Now, it was just short answers. It was fine, Mom. Yeah, school's okay. I'm gonna go to my room. I didn't push. Maybe because I was afraid he would pull away even more. So I let him go. I let everyone go. The house was beautiful. People always told me how lucky I was to live in such a nice place. High ceilings, big windows, marble countertops. The kind of house people dream of having. But no one ever talks about how a house that big can feel so empty. I would sit in the living room at night, the only light coming from the TV, the only sound the low hum of whatever show was playing. And it would hit me, this deep, suffocating loneliness. I had a husband, a son, a house, a life that looked perfect from the outside. But inside? Inside, I was a ghost. The only person who really knew what was going on was Mia, my best friend since college. She was my rock. The one person who saw through the fake smiles and the "I'm fine" lies. Mia wasn't the type to sugarcoat things. "Claire, you deserve more than this," she would say, over and over. "If he won't fight for you, you have to fight for yourself." She told me to book a solo trip. To take a break. To go out, have fun, flirt a little. I would laugh it off, shake my head. That wasn't me. I wasn't that woman. But Mia would just sip her coffee, raise an eyebrow, and say, "Maybe you should be." That night, before the knock at the door, I had received a text. An unknown number. At first, I assumed it was spam, some random message meant for someone else. But when I opened it, my stomach flipped. "Hey, I know it's been a long time. I don't even know if this is still your number. But I had to try. I need to talk to you. Please, if you see this, reply." I stared at the message, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Something about it felt familiar. Something about it made my heart race. But I didn't respond. I locked my phone, pushed it aside. And then, an hour later, the knock at the door. The knock that changed everything. And when I finally pulled the door open, when I finally saw who was standing there, I forgot how to breathe. Because standing in the rain, eyes locked onto mine, was the last person I ever expected to see. I forgot how to breathe. The rain poured behind him, streaking down his face, dripping from the edges of his jacket. His hair was damp, sticking to his forehead. But even through the darkness, even through the years that had passed, I knew exactly who he was. Adam. A name I hadn't spoken in so long, but one that still held weight in the deepest corners of my mind. For a second, I just stood there, gripping the doorframe as the cold night air wrapped around me. My brain was working too slowly, trying to catch up with the reality of what was happening. Adam. Here. At my door. At midnight. And the look in his eyes told me something wasn't right. "Claire. I know it's late. I'm sorry. He swallowed hard, shaking his head. I didn't know where else to go. I should have asked why he was here. I should have questioned why, after years of silence, he suddenly showed up on my doorstep in the middle of the night like a scene from a movie. But I didn't. Instead, I just stepped back. And without thinking, without hesitating, I whispered the words that would change everything. "Come in." He did. And just like that, Adam was back in my life. Inside, the warmth of my home contrasted sharply with the storm raging outside. The fireplace flickered, the dim lighting casting shadows along the walls. It should have felt comforting. But with Adam standing there, dripping onto my hardwood floors, it felt charged. "You're soaked," I murmured, already moving toward the hallway. "Let me get you a towel." But when I turned back, he was still standing in the doorway, his eyes scanning the house like he was seeing ghosts. Like he was remembering something. Something we never talked about. "It looks the same." I hesitated, watching him. "Yeah, I guess it does. But we weren't the same. Not anymore. Adam and we had history. Not the kind of history you bring up over casual conversation. Not the kind you share in passing. No, this was the kind of history that lingers. The kind you don't talk about, but you feel it whenever your eyes meet. He was my closest friend once. A lifetime ago. Back when I was young. Back when I still believed in things like forever. Before David. Before my life became a cycle of waiting and silence and pretending. Adam had been there. He had been my person. And then, one day, he was gone. No big fight. No dramatic ending. Just distance. Life pulling us in different directions. Or maybe we had pulled ourselves apart. And now, after all this time, he was here. I handed him the towel, watching as he ran it through his hair, his hands still shaking slightly. "What happened?" I finally asked. "Why are you here?" For the first time since I opened the door, he met my eyes fully. And what I saw there made my stomach tighten. Pain. Regret. Something else I couldn't quite place. "I messed up, Claire." I frowned. Messed up how? His jaw tightened. He shook his head, running a hand through his damp hair. "It's a long story." "I have time," I said. He let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "Do you?" And just like that, the air shifted. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The rain pounded against the windows, the wind howling outside. But inside, the silence stretched between us like an unspoken truth. I glanced at my phone on the counter. No messages. No missed calls. David was still gone. I should have told Adam to leave. I should have said something to break the tension, to set boundaries, to remind myself that this was nothing. But the thing about loneliness? It makes you hold on to things you shouldn't. Without thinking, I moved to the kitchen, reaching for the bottle of wine I had been sipping from before the knock at the door. "Do you want some?" I asked. He hesitated. Then, finally, he nodded. I poured us both a glass, my hands steady even though my heart wasn't. We sat at the kitchen island, across from each other, just like we used to all those years ago. And slowly, the conversation started. At first, it was simple. Small talk. Catching up. A little laughter, a little nostalgia. But then, somewhere between the second and third sip of wine, things got real. Adam told me about his marriage. How it had ended. His wife gone. Left him for someone else. Someone younger. Someone exciting. She told me I was too predictable, he said, swirling the wine in his glass. Too steady. I guess she wanted fireworks. I let out a quiet breath. "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Don't be." I saw it coming. I just didn't want to believe it. I understood that more than I cared to admit. "And you?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. "Are you happy, Claire?" The question caught me off guard. Happy. Such a simple word. But when was the last time I had even thought about it? I could have lied. I should have lied. But the thing about Adam? I had never been able to lie to him. So instead, I just looked down. And that was answer enough. He exhaled, shaking his head. I knew it. Knew what? I asked, my voice quieter now. That you'd stay. Even if you were unhappy. Even if you deserved more. I swallowed, my throat tight. Marriage is complicated. No, it's not. His voice was low now, almost dangerous. People make it complicated. I should have shut it down. I should have changed the subject. But I didn't. Because for the first time in a long time, I felt seen. The room felt smaller. The air heavier. And then, just for a second, Adam reached across the counter, and his fingers brushed against mine. A touch so small, so fleeting, it should have meant nothing. But it did. And just like that, everything shifted. That night, that moment, that single touch. It was the beginning of something I never saw coming. And the worst part? I didn't stop it. I didn't want to. The rain kept falling. Harder now, pounding against the windows like an unrelenting drumbeat. The storm had fully settled in, the wind howling through the trees outside, making the house feel smaller, more enclosed. But the real storm wasn't outside. It was in me. I should have never let him in. I knew that the second I turned the handle, the second he stepped inside, carrying the weight of old memories and unresolved emotions. Yet here we were. Adam sat on my couch, his posture tense, his hands gripping the towel I'd given him. The firelight flickered across his face, casting deep shadows that made him look older, tired, worn. He wasn't the same man I remembered. But neither was I the same woman. And still, the way he looked at me, it made me feel like no time had passed at all. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sounds in the room were the crackling of the fireplace and the steady ticking of the clock on the wall. Then, finally, Adam exhaled, shaking his head. I can't believe I'm here. I swallowed, my throat tight. Neither can I. He let out a dry chuckle, but there was no humor in it. He ran a hand over his face, rubbing at his tired eyes. I don't even know what I was thinking, Claire. I had to see you. My chest tightened. Why? He looked at me then. Really looked at me. And I felt like he was peeling back the layers I had carefully built around myself. Because, he said quietly, you were the last person who ever really knew me. His words hit me harder than I expected. Because I knew exactly what he meant. I knew what it was like to feel invisible, to feel like you were just existing instead of living. To spend your days pretending everything was fine when, deep down, you were breaking into 1,000 silent pieces. I felt that every day. What happened, Adam? I asked, my voice softer now. He hesitated. Then, finally, he spoke. She cheated on me. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and raw. 3 years of marriage, he continued, shaking his head. 3 years of thinking we were building something real, something solid. And the whole time, she was with someone else. Pain flickered across his face, and I felt it like it was my own. I didn't even see it coming, he admitted. Or maybe I did. Maybe I just didn't want to believe it. That last part hit too close to home. Because wasn't I doing the same thing? Ignoring the fact that my own marriage had become nothing more than a lifeless arrangement? Pretending that David's absence, physical and emotional, didn't mean something? I clenched my hands in my lap, staring at the flickering flames in the fireplace. I'm sorry, Adam, I whispered. He gave me a small, sad smile. Yeah, me too. For a moment, we just sat there. Two people bound by loneliness, by the ache of being forgotten. Then Adam sighed, leaning back against the couch. Do you remember that summer? He asked suddenly. I turned to look at him. Which one? The one before everything changed. I knew exactly what he meant. The summer before David. The summer before life got complicated. The summer when Adam and I were still just us, before we drifted, before we let other people take up the spaces we used to fill for each other. We were happy back then, he said, staring at the ceiling. Weren't we? I felt my throat tighten. Yeah, we were. He turned his head, looking at me again. Are you happy now? The question sent a sharp jolt through me. I should have said yes. I should have lied. But instead, my mouth opened, and nothing came out. And in that silence, Adam found his answer. The air between us shifted. His eyes lingered on me, on the curve of my jaw, the way my fingers gripped the fabric of the blanket I had pulled around myself. It was a look I hadn't seen in years. Not from my husband. Not from anyone. It made my skin burn. Made my breath hitch. Made my mind scream at me to look away. But I didn't. Because for the first time in so long, I didn't want to. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was him. Maybe it was me. Maybe it was something neither of us controlled, something bigger than the both of us, pulling us toward a line we shouldn't cross. But before I even had time to think, our hands brushed. A simple touch. Light. Barely there. But it sent a shockwave through my entire body. Adam must have felt it too because he stilled completely, his eyes locking onto mine, his breath shallow. Neither of us moved. Neither of us breathed. And in that single, fragile moment, everything we had buried over the years came rushing back to the surface. I should have pulled away. I needed to pull away. But God, I didn't want to. For so long, I had been starving for something real. Something warm. David didn't look at me like this. Didn't touch me like this. Didn't see me like this. And Adam? Adam did. I could feel the weight of his stare, the way he was holding himself back, fighting the same battle I was. My mind was screaming at me. Stop this. End this now. But my heart? My heart was whispering something else entirely. What if? Claire. My name was a breath on his lips. A quiet plea. I swallowed hard, my hands trembling. Adam, we can't. He exhaled sharply, like he had been holding his breath this entire time. I know. But he didn't move. And neither did I. Because even though we knew the right answer, in that moment, the wrong one felt so much easier to give in to. The storm outside was nothing compared to the one inside me. And the worst part? I didn't know if I wanted to fight it, or if I wanted to let it take me completely. The rain hadn't let up. If anything, it had only gotten worse, pounding against the windows, rattling against the roof, filling the house with the steady sound of something I couldn't ignore. It felt fitting in a way. Like the storm outside mirrored the one building inside me. Adam and I were still sitting at the kitchen island, the half-empty bottle of wine between us. The room was warm from the fireplace, the soft golden glow making the moment feel almost surreal. We had been talking for hours. About nothing. About everything. About old memories, about people we used to be. But beneath the words, beneath the nostalgia, there was something else. A shift. A slow, dangerous shift that neither of us had acknowledged out loud. Until he did. Until Adam leaned forward, his voice dropping just enough to send a shiver down my spine, and said, I've always had feelings for you, Claire. The words hung in the air, heavy and electric. I felt my breath catch, my fingers tightening around my wine glass. I should have laughed it off. I should have pretended it was a joke, changed the subject, made it clear that this was nothing. But I didn't. Because it wasn't nothing. And we both knew it. Adam, my voice came out softer than I intended. He shook his head, exhaling sharply, like he had been holding it in for years. No, don't say it's crazy. Don't say I'm wrong. I swallowed, my throat dry. It's been years, I whispered. Doesn't mean it went away. His eyes searched mine, dark and unreadable. You think I don't remember? The way we used to be? Before everything? My pulse hammered in my ears. I did remember. I had never let myself admit it out loud, but I had never truly forgotten. There had always been something between us, something I had buried so deep that I convinced myself it didn't exist. But now, here he was, dragging it back to the surface. And I wasn't stopping him. Because part of me, a dangerous, reckless part of me, wanted to hear it. Adam ran a hand through his hair, his frustration evident. You were always the one, Claire, he said, shaking his head. Even before David. Even before we lost touch. It was always you. My heart clenched. You can't say things like that, I whispered. Why not? Because it's the truth? His voice was low, careful, almost pleading. I wanted to shut it down. I wanted to tell him he was wrong. That this was just old feelings, resurfacing because we were both broken in our own ways. But my lips wouldn't move. Because the truth was. I felt it too. I knew what was happening. I knew this was dangerous, that we were standing at the edge of something we could never come back from. And yet, I didn't move. Adam's fingers brushed against mine again, this time deliberate. No accident. No excuse. A touch that lingered. A touch that asked a question neither of us wanted to answer. The logical part of me, the one that still held onto the thin, unraveling thread of my marriage, screamed at me to stop. To step back. To remember who I was supposed to be. But my heart? My heart whispered something else. What if? What if I let myself feel something again? What if I stopped pretending that I wasn't lonely? What if, for just one night, I let myself forget everything else? And then, my phone buzzed. The sharp vibration cut through the air like a slap, breaking the spell in an instant. I blinked, my breath hitching, my gaze snapping down to the glowing screen. David. For the first time in hours, my husband had finally texted me back. David, sorry, fell asleep. Miss you too. I felt the words hit me like a punch to the gut. Miss you too. I stared at the message, my stomach twisting, my grip on the phone tightening. It was so simple. So effortless. Like nothing was wrong. Like he didn't know that, at that very moment, his wife was sitting across from another man, her heart racing for reasons that had nothing to do with him. Like he didn't realize that I had spent the last few hours lost in something I shouldn't have been. Like he didn't realize that, in another minute, I might have done something unforgivable. I sucked in a sharp breath and put my phone down. But the damage was done. Adam saw it. Saw the way my entire body tensed, saw the way my fingers trembled as I set the glass down on the counter. Claire. His voice was softer now. I shook my head. I can't, I know. But he didn't move. And neither did I. Because even though my mind had snapped back to reality, my body, my heart, was still caught in the storm. The weight of everything we had said, everything we hadn't, still hung between us. I could feel it. He could feel it. And even though nothing had happened yet, it still felt like I had already crossed a line. Because the truth was, the moment I had let him in tonight, I had already started falling. The line between right and wrong had never felt thinner. And I didn't know if I wanted to step away from it, or let myself cross it completely. The room felt suffocating. The air thick, almost impossible to breathe. My heart was still racing, my fingers trembling against the cool surface of the kitchen counter. Adam was still watching me, his eyes searching, waiting, hoping. But I couldn't do this. I had already let things go too far. I swallowed hard and forced myself to stand. My legs felt unsteady, like I had been shaken from a dream I should have never been in. Adam. I can't. The words felt foreign on my tongue, but they needed to be said. Because if I didn't stop this now, right now, I wasn't sure I would stop it at all. Adam didn't say anything at first. For a long, painful moment, he just stared at me. And then, he exhaled. Slow, controlled. But I could see it in his eyes. Disappointment. Not anger. Not resentment. Just something quiet and aching. I just thought maybe you felt the same, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. I closed my eyes for half a second. Because that was the worst part of all. I did feel the same. I just couldn't let myself feel it. Adam. I stopped myself, shaking my head. But it doesn't matter. He let out a humorless chuckle, running a hand through his hair. Doesn't matter? He huffed. Claire, I see it all over you. I know you feel it. I know I'm not making this up. His words sent a shiver down my spine. Because he was right. He knew. For a second, just one, I almost took it back. I almost let myself fall, let myself reach for him. Because in that moment, standing there in the glow of the dim kitchen lights, with the storm raging outside and years of unspoken feelings crackling between us like fire, it felt inevitable. Like something that had always been waiting to happen. But then a sound. A sudden, sharp knock at the door. And just like that, the moment shattered. My head snapped toward the door. For a heartbeat, Adam and I just stood there, frozen in place, listening. The knock came again. Louder this time. My stomach dropped. It was late. No one else should have been here. Then Mom. My heart stopped. Because I knew that voice. Ethan. My son. Panic shot through me like ice water. I turned to Adam, my pulse thundering in my ears. You have to go, I whispered urgently. His brows furrowed, still trying to process what was happening. But I didn't have time to explain. I grabbed his arm, pulling him toward the back hallway. Claire, please, Adam. Just go. I'll call you later. He hesitated, and for a second, I thought he might argue. But then he saw the look in my eyes. The desperation. The fear. And without another word, he nodded. I watched as he moved quickly toward the side door, slipping out into the rain. Then I took a deep, shaking breath and turned back to face the front door. I forced my hands to steady before I opened the door. Ethan stood there, hoodie pulled up over his damp hair, his backpack slung over one shoulder. His brows were furrowed, his expression unreadable. "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "You're home early." He stepped inside, shaking off the rain. "Yeah. Matt's mom had to work early tomorrow, so she dropped us all off." He set his bag down, then looked up at me again. Really looked at me. And immediately, I knew. He knew something was off. Who was here? The question hit me like a brick. I forced my expression to stay neutral. "What?" He crossed his arms. "I saw a car in the driveway. Someone was here, right?" For a second, I couldn't speak. Because in that moment, standing in front of my son, the son who had always trusted me, who had never had a reason not to trust me, I realized something. I had almost lost myself tonight. And if I wasn't careful, I was going to lose him too. I forced a small smile. It was just an old friend. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Who?" "You don't know him." Silence. The kind of silence that made my stomach twist. "Right," he said finally. "Okay." He turned away, grabbing his bag, heading toward the stairs. I let out a breath. Maybe I had dodged it. But then Mom? I froze. He was at the bottom of the stairs, back still turned to me. "Does Dad know?" My chest constricted. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Ethan didn't wait for an answer. He just nodded to himself, like he already knew, and walked upstairs, his footsteps slow and deliberate. And when his door clicked shut, I felt the weight of everything come crashing down. I had made my choice. I had pushed Adam away. But in that moment, staring at the staircase where my son had just disappeared, with the echoes of his unspoken words still hanging in the air, I realized something terrifying. I had already lost something tonight, and I wasn't sure if I could ever get it back. Ethan's door was closed, but the weight of his words, "Does Dad know?" hung in the air, suffocating me. I stood there, frozen, my hands gripping the counter as my heart pounded in my chest. The storm outside had started to die down, but inside me, inside this house, the damage had already been done. And the worst part? I didn't know if I could fix it. Even though Adam had already left, the house still felt like he was in it. His presence lingered in the warm spot on the couch, in the faint scent of rain and cologne that still clung to the air. But the worst place he lingered? In Ethan's eyes. The way he had looked at me. Not with anger. Not with disgust. Something worse. Disappointment. I turned toward the hallway, my feet moving on their own, my chest tight. I needed to talk to him. I needed to fix this before it spiraled into something I couldn't control. I reached his door, raised my hand to knock, and then, from the other side, the sound of a lock clicking into place. I closed my eyes, swallowing hard. Because that lock? That wasn't just about the door. That was Ethan shutting me out. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed up, sitting on the couch where Adam had been just hours before, staring at the ceiling, my mind running in circles. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Ethan's face. The hurt, the confusion, that moment when he had looked at me, his own mother, and saw something he never expected to see. I had spent his whole life protecting him, making sure he knew he could trust me. And in one night, I had shattered that. At some point, I reached for my phone. My fingers hovered over Adam's contact. I didn't know why. I wasn't going to call him. Was I? I shook my head, closing my eyes. Instead, I opened my texts. David's name stared back at me. "David, sorry, fell asleep. Miss you too." He had no idea. No idea that while he had been sleeping in some hotel room, I had been sitting across from another man, letting old feelings take root in places they shouldn't have. No idea that our son had come home and seen it all. I typed out a message. "Hey, can we talk?" But I never sent it. I deleted it and put my phone face down on the table. Because what was I going to say? "Hey, David. Our son saw me with another man tonight, and I don't know if he'll ever look at me the same way again. Hey, David. I almost ruined our marriage tonight. Maybe I already did. No, I wasn't ready to have that conversation. Not yet. By the time morning came, I felt like I had aged 10 years. I was still in the same clothes, my body stiff from sleeping on the couch in restless, broken intervals. But the second I heard footsteps coming down the stairs, my heart jumped. Ethan. I sat up quickly, trying to smooth down my hair, trying to look normal. But I could already tell, nothing about today was normal. He walked into the kitchen, silent. Didn't look at me. Didn't say good morning. He just opened the fridge, pulled out the carton of orange juice, and poured himself a glass. The tension in the room was unbearable. I took a deep breath. Ethan, don't. His voice was flat. Emotionless. But that was the problem. I would have taken anger over this. At least anger meant he still felt something. This was worse. I opened my mouth, desperate for something, anything, to fix this. Ethan, I know what it looked like last night, but he turned around so fast, I stopped mid-sentence. But what, Mom? His eyes were sharp now, his voice laced with something cold. Dad's gone for one night, and this is what happens? A gut punch. I physically felt those words hit me. It's not what you think, I whispered, my throat tightening. He let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Right. Because inviting some guy over while Dad's out of town is totally normal, right? I closed my eyes, my nails digging into my palms. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? He took a step closer now, his fists clenched. Go ahead, Mom. Explain it to me. Tell me why some random guy was in our house at midnight. Tell me why you looked guilty as hell when I walked in. I felt like I was standing in quicksand. No matter what I said, no matter how I tried to explain, it wouldn't be enough. Because I couldn't tell him the truth. Not the whole truth. Not that I had almost done something I couldn't take back. Not that, if he had come home even 10 minutes later, he might have walked into something far worse. So I did the worst thing I could have done. I said nothing. And in that silence, Ethan got his answer. He shook his head slowly. I used to think you were different, he murmured. I felt my stomach twist. Ethan, please, no. He cut me off, his voice shaking now. Just don't. He grabbed his backpack from the chair, slinging it over his shoulder. I gotta get to school. Can we talk later? My voice was barely above a whisper now. He didn't answer. Didn't even look at me as he walked out the door. And when it slammed shut behind him, I felt something inside me break. There are mistakes you can fix. And then, there are the ones that change things forever. I didn't know which one this was yet. But as I sat there in the silence of my empty house, the memory of Ethan's voice still echoing in my head. I had a feeling I was about to find out. I didn't move for a long time. I just sat there, staring at the empty space where Ethan had been standing, at the front door that had slammed shut behind him. The house was quiet again. But this wasn't the same silence I had known before. This wasn't the kind of loneliness that came from a husband who worked too much, from a routine that had lost all its warmth. This was something worse. Because this time, it was my fault. I had spent so many nights feeling invisible. Feeling like no one noticed me, like no one cared. But tonight, Ethan had noticed. And what he saw, it wasn't the mother he had trusted. It was someone else. Someone I didn't even recognize anymore. I exhaled shakily, finally moving to the kitchen. My wine glass was still there, still filled from the night before. I picked it up, rolling the stem between my fingers, but I couldn't bring myself to take a sip. For the first time in a long time. I wasn't trying to drown anything out. I was sitting with it. The guilt. The regret. The terrifying realization that even though I hadn't done anything, I had almost. And wasn't that just as bad? I knew what I had done. Or rather, I knew what I almost did. What if Ethan hadn't come home when he did? What if I had let my guard down just a little more? What if I had let Adam kiss me? What if I had wanted him to? I squeezed my eyes shut, pressing my fingertips against my temples. Because the truth was, I did want him to. And that was the part one couldn't run from. That was the part one couldn't undo. My phone buzzed against the countertop. I turned it over, my heart already pounding. Adam, I'm sorry. Take care. I let out a slow breath, my chest tightening. I could picture him saying it, could hear his voice in my head. The way he had looked at me before he left. He knew that if things had gone just a little differently, we wouldn't have stopped. And that scared me. Because if I had wanted this to be over, if I had really wanted to shut the door on whatever Adam and I had almost started, then why did it feel like I was losing something? Why did I want to text him back? I bit my lip, fighting the urge. Fighting the part of me that wanted more. But before I could dwell on it too long, another message. One that sent a different kind of shiver down my spine. David, love you. See you soon. I inhaled sharply, my fingers tightening around my phone. Love you. 2 simple words. Ones I had read 1,000 times. Ones that should have made me feel something. But tonight, all they made me feel was trapped. I set the phone down, suddenly feeling suffocated. This was my life. David. My husband. The man I had built a home with, a life with, a family with. And yet, I had spent the entire night wanting something else. Not just attention. Not just excitement. Adam. I hated myself for it. Because David wasn't a bad husband. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't unfaithful. He was just gone. But maybe, in some ways, I had been gone too. Maybe I had let myself slip away, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to fight for. Until someone else had stepped into the space he left behind. I covered my face with my hands, swallowing hard. What was I supposed to do now? How was I supposed to look at David when he came home, knowing what had almost happened while he was away? How was I supposed to look at Ethan, knowing that in his eyes I had already failed him? I had spent years waiting for something to change. And tonight it had. But not in the way I had expected. Not in a way I could fix. I thought loneliness was the worst thing I had ever felt. But I was wrong. Because this was worse. And I had no idea how to make it go away. That night, I didn't cross the line. But I stood at its very edge. And, even now, I still don't know what that means. Does stopping just before the fall make you innocent? Or does standing too close mean you've already lost something you can't get back? A pause. A deep breath. I keep asking myself, how did I get here? How did I let my marriage become something so fragile that one night, one conversation, was all it took to shake its foundation? How did I let loneliness carve out a space inside me big enough for someone else to fit? A silence lingers, heavy, weighted with thought. I didn't kiss Adam. I didn't let him stay. I didn't do what my heart, what my body, was begging me to do. But does that really change anything? If I wanted it, does that make me just as guilty? The screen darkens slightly, shifting from deep introspection to direct engagement. I need to ask you something. Not just as a storyteller. Not just as a voice behind a screen. But as a person. Someone who made a mistake. Someone who let something dangerous slip through the cracks. Someone who isn't sure if they were wrong or just human. A beat. A hesitation. What do you think? Do emotional betrayals count? Does wanting something you don't act on still mean you've done something wrong? Or is the real betrayal the moment you realize your heart was never in the place you thought it was? Another pause. A shift in tone. An edge of vulnerability. Was I wrong for letting Adam in? Would you have done the same? Or would you have gone even further? I know I'm not the only one who's felt this way. I know I'm not the only one who's ever stood at the edge of something dangerous and wondered if stepping forward might feel like freedom. So tell me, if you've ever been in this situation, if you've ever felt what I felt, let me know in the comments. Tell me, what would you have done? And if you want more stories like this, stories that explore the real parts of love, marriage, and the messy truths no one likes to talk about, hit that like button. Subscribe to Heartfelt Tales Unfold for more jaw-dropping stories like this. Because trust me, this story, it's not over yet.